Welcome to Movie Oubliette, the film review podcast for movies that most people have mercifully forgotten.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Conrad, and in each episode, we drag a forsaken film out of the oubliette,
Discuss it and judge it to decide whether it should be set free
or whether it should be thrown back and consigned to oblivion forever. We review the films others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the movie oubliette.
Greetings, listeners, and welcome to Movie Oubliette, episode 157, the hemisphere-spanning podcast with me, Dan, returned from a dugong-free beach weekend away down here in Melbourne, Australia.
And me, Conrad, getting ready to go to Fright Fest in Cambridge, UK.
Woohoo! In this podcast, we ponder over sci-fi, fantasy, and horror films that people have swept under the rug. We just love creepy, booby-trapped houses, guys in gimp suits, and cannibalism.
Our favourite.
It's an acquired taste, isn't it?
Yeah.
Conrad, all set to go?
I'm looking forward to this. This is Fright Fest. I've never been to it. I'm just going for a day as a bit of a warm-up for going to another film festival in a few weeks.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm going with a friend to watch a whole bunch of movies, including Nightmare on Elm Street's 40th anniversary screening.
Wow. Ooh, yeah, it's very, very fitting for this episode.
Yeah, exactly. And no dugongs, though. And you didn't have any dugongs either.
No. So we went on a sort of a 4-day beach weekend. It wasn't technically a weekend, but it felt like a extended weekend because we left on a Sunday. But we took the dog and we went down to the Gippsland Beach Bay area, Locksport. We went to a beach and let the dog run free on a stunning beach. I mean, it's the middle of winter, so there was no one there, but it was amazing. It was pretty much like a private beach that went on for miles and miles and miles. And yeah, the dog had a good time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I haven't seen the coast for a very, very long time.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, well, I mean, it's not that far away, right?
I live on an island. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I remember when I was in the UK, it's funny because the weather's generally not great in the UK. So people go to the beach, even if there's only a glimmer of sunshine.
Can you blame us?
Yeah, I mean, you got to take it while you can. But I remember going once and it was not warm. It was very windy, and the beach was packed. So
yeah. If the sun peeks out even slightly, we go down there and have some ice cream and dump a whole load of coins into an arcade.
Yeah. I do love the seaside arcades. They're a thing that does not exist here in Australia. So yeah,
it's a tradition. You got to play one of those games with the grabbers that don't pick up anything.
Yeah, or the game where you put in the coins and you're trying to knock off other coins. that one. And it's just like moving backwards and forwards.
Draws, yeah. It's like if you win like 5, 10p pieces after you've patiently fed in like £6 worth, you feel like it's a victory. It's insane.
Yeah.
Oh, happy days.
Yes. It's great.
It is.
All right. Anything in the mailbag today, Conrad? Any happy listeners?
Oh, yes, lots of them, including Kevin from Planet X, who's rejoined us as a patron after taking a short break. And Kevin said, I can't tell you how happy it makes me that my favourite podcasters have had such glowing reviews of Godzilla 1954 and Godzilla -1, which we covered in one of our exclusive minisodes for patrons. I've been a fan of the big guys since as long as I can remember. He also mentioned that the special effects director you mentioned is I.G. Suburbia. I don't know if I've got that right. Kevin did spell it phonetically for me. And he says, before Godzilla, there was no special effects industry in Japan since sci-fi and fantasy films were so rare. He got his start making miniature sets and props for wartime propaganda films, which gave him the expertise for Godzilla. He essentially is the beginning of the sci-fi fantasy cinema in Japan, and since his work on Godzilla, Ultraman and related properties had such a profound effect, he's a hugely important figure. And everything from Akira to Pokemon to Studio Ghibli owes him a debt.
Wow. That's really interesting.
Who knew? Well, probably lots of people knew that, but we didn't because we were just discovering this. So Yes. Thanks, Kevin. He also wanted us to watch Shin Godzilla because apparently that's a good one.
That's a good one. Oh, okay. And maybe sometime in the future.
I'm definitely interested in checking out more.
Yeah, me too.
We also heard from Dustin Rathbun, who said, I haven't had a chance to see Long Weekend yet, but the way you all described it reminded me of 1977's Day of the Animals, where all of the animals in the area of the story go berserk and attack the humans with deadly force.
Ooh.
There was a scientific rather than supernatural reason presented for the events in that film, though. One of the most memorable things about Day of the Animals was Leslie Nielsen in one of his non-comedic roles going full caveman and trying to take a bear down in hand-to-hand Mortal Kombat.
Wow.
Oh, I really want to see that.
Yeah. Wow. I don't think I've ever seen Leslie Nielsen in a serious role.
No, it's really weird. I've seen a few. Like, he's the captain in the Poseidon Adventure, the disaster movie.
Yeah,
and
right.
when he's screaming at a tidal wave coming at him, you can't take it seriously at all.
Oh, right.
It's really bad. Oh, dear. Yeah. Good fun, though. We were struggling to think of another movie where lots of different animals started attacking people rather than just one.
Yeah.
So... yeah, that's really interesting, doesn't it? I feel like that's a Riff Tracks movie or a Mystery Science Theatre movie. I feel like they've done it, so I might check that out.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I was thinking back to the Long Weekend movie and how the sort of lack of dangerous animals in a country that's full of dangerous animals as well.
Yeah, you've got the most dangerous animals in the world.
There's like one snake in the movie, and I'm pretty sure it's a python, which is not that dangerous.
Yeah.
There are so many other snakes. There's so many spiders they could have used, or crocodiles, or anything else.
Yeah.
But no,
Possums.
and eagles.
And a dugong.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Anyway.
Okay. And we also heard from Serge of Cold Crash Pictures.
Hello, Serge.
Hello, Serge. And he said, Long Weekend is a 100% vibes-based horror powered by little more than foreboding imagery and weird sound effects, with two leads who are very hard to like. But I liked it. It's slightly underwhelming as an eco-horror, but bolstered by a tumultuous marriage with mysterious baggage. I actually like it much more as a film about a doomed relationship with a lot of external manifestations of their various traumas than a movie about nature taking revenge. But it's sort of impossible to avoid the eco-horror angle. It's very explicit. Was shocked when Movie Oubliette reached a unanimous verdict on their latest episode and then polled their patrons and got the exact opposite unanimous verdict. For a relatively obscure film, it sure is polarizing.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really fun. That's never happened before, but it was fun.
No, it has never happened. That's true.
So thanks everyone for writing. We really do love hearing from you.
Yes, we do. Okay, on to the film for today, Conrad.
Yes, let me just hang out over here with the Oubliette and find out what it is.
Okay.
Oh, I seem to be in between some walls.
Oh, okay. Oh, bit of a maze.
Yes, tunnels and plaster and rubbish. I hear people howling.
Yeah, creepy.
Oh well, here's the movie and a door. I'll just open the knob.
What happened?
It's electrified. Okay, I'm coming back.
Yeah, watch out for the dog.
Whoa! You kids will be the death of me.
Good grief, it's getting so hazardous in there.
Yeah, I know. So what do you have?
So I have with me the 1991 American comedy horror film The People Under the Stairs, written and directed by Wes Craven, starring Brandon Adams, Everett McGill, Wendy Roby, AJ Langer, Ving Rhames, Bill Cobbs, Kelly Jo Minter, Sean Whalen, and Jeremy Roberts.
Ooh, nice. And what happens in this film?
Well, when his grandmother is bedridden with cancer and his family's threatened with eviction, 13-year-old Poindexter Williams, known by his nickname Fool, is convinced by family friend Leroy to break into the landlord's house to steal a rumoured stash of gold coins. Unfortunately, Fool and Leroy discover that beneath the wealthy Robeson's veneer of white suburban middle-class perfection lies a twisted world of booby traps, imprisoned children, and cannibalism. The landlords call each other Mummy and Daddy, keep their so-called daughter Alice locked up indoors, obediently wearing pinafore dresses and sewing rag dolls, while all their rejected, naughty sons are trapped in the basement, feeding on the bodies of hapless would-be burglars and other undesirables. Will Fool be able to escape with the help of Alice and Roach, a young boy who lives in the walls? Are the evil Robesons sitting on a mountain of gold after all? And why does Daddy hunt people in his house wearing a black leather gimp suit? Find out, possibly, after the break.
Yes.
And we're back to get to know the people under the stairs. Dan, had you seen this movie?
No, I had not. I have owned this movie for a while because I picked it up, I'm pretty sure, like the first year or two that we started the podcast. I always wanted to watch this. I feel like people have mentioned this movie a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that we're finally covering it.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
I saw this not as a rental. It didn't appeal to me, I seem to remember. I think I saw this on television about the time that it started getting a bit of a cult following and was being reappreciated, because when it came out, I don't think it was a massive success immediately, although it was number one in the box office the first week of its release.
Oh, wow, was it?
Yes, it was. So it debuted at number one on November 1st, 1991. Number two was Curly Sue, the John Hughes family comedy.
I do love that movie.
Yeah, I do. It's cute, isn't it? Number three was Highlander 2, which we are intimately familiar with. Yeah, check out our video essay on that one if you would like to. Number four was Billy Bathgate, which I think is a crime drama.
Okay.
And number five, Little Man Tate, which I think is a Jodie Foster movie, if I remember rightly.
Haven't seen that either.
Very different time in the cinema back then. And it sort of slipped from 1 to 2, then 4, then 7, then 9, then 10. So it was in the charts for a long time. And ended the year sort of 57th overall, having garnered about $31 million worldwide on a $6 million budget. So it wasn't a flop. But I remember at the time that people, including myself, was sort of disappointed because it's Wes Craven let loose on another scary movie. And then you watched it and it's not really scary.
It's different. It's a different tone towards normal films because, like you said in your synopsis, it is kind of a comedy.
Yeah.
It's quite strange. It is quite strange. So it's the third movie by Wes Craven that we're doing on the pod, I think, after The Serpent and the Rainbow and Shocker that we did with Melinda. And it's very different to all of those movies.
Yeah.
Like there are certain aspects of it that does feel quite Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, just the kind of almost slasher element that it has at times. But yeah, for the most part, it felt to me like I was watching Home Alone meets Die Hard.
Yes.
With cannibalism. And it's, I don't know. It's quite a strange setup. I did really love the premise of it.
Yes. You have to get used to the tone. If you're going in expecting something that's going to terrify you, like A Nightmare on Elm Street, you're not going to get that.
No.
It is very much a satire. It's very much cartoonish in its approach. I don't think you're meant to take any of it particularly seriously. And it's fairly lightweight and it's very 90s. Everything does look very much like a set.
Yeah.
It's not the grittiest of films.
No, I mean, I didn't think it was that bad set-wise and production-wise. I thought it was great to see something set in this kind of urban ghetto black community. I did not expect that from Wes Craven.
No.
Even in just horror in general, like it just felt like we haven't really seen this that much. All the main characters are black, or the good characters, I guess, in inverted commas. And the lead is a child as well, like Brandon Quinton Adams as Fool. What? It did feel very 90s comedy, violence as comedy as well, which was very 90s. Like I'm thinking of like Home Alone and other movies like Dennis the Menace or like Problem Child, all these kind of really silly comedies with violence for comedy where these people are getting quite hurt, but it's funny. But in this movie, people are getting very hurt. Like
people die.
People are getting killed and cut up. It's quite strange pairing this sort of silly, almost kids movie with extreme violence and like gratuitous gore. There, like some of the props are disgusting. Like that is horrifying to see.
Ving Rhames or Rames, I've never been sure how you're meant to pronounce his surname.
Yes.
He does die in this movie, spoilers, and he's butchered and fed to people.
Yeah, it's quite graphic in terms of when he's getting butchered up and pieces of him are getting thrown to the people under the stairs. Yeah, I mean, going back to the premise, so you've got this neighborhood that's being gentrified, I guess. Well, this family owns a lot of properties on this neighborhood and kind of purposely evicting or trying to evict people. So you've got Fool and his family getting evicted. And so to get money, I don't know why this was the best option. To get money, they decide to rob the landlords because they stumble upon a treasure map of gold that the landlords have. So they're going to rob their own landlord so that they can pay for the rent to not be evicted by said landlord. So they go into the house and oh no, the landlords are not your usual people. They are a brother and sister cannibal couple. They abduct children to be their child, and if they're not behaving, they cut their tongues off and just store them in the basement under the stairs, which is quite an odd premise. So they've amassed all of these boys that are no longer boys under the stairs. They feed bits of other people that happen to come to the house, salesmen and Mormons, I guess.
Boy Scouts, goodness knows what.
And they kill them and feed them and also eat them. And then pretty much the movie felt like Die Hard, essentially. You've got Fool trapped in the house, trying to escape and also trying to sort of defeat the bad people. And he also happens upon Alice, who's a daughter that they've adopted. Or kidnapped, really. It's an interesting premise.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And at one point, Fool escapes the house and goes back to rescue Alice. After he's free and clear, which shows amazing fortitude for a terrified 13-year-old. I mean, the whole thing, as you say, it doesn't seem like the logical choice to break into your landlord's house to steal money from them to pay the rent to them. It has a wonderful sort of Robin Hood style poetic justice to it. And the film does feel like, and Wes Craven did refer to it as a fairy tale. And I love that the movie opens during the main titles with a tarot card reading from Fool's. Is it his sister? Ruby Williams, played by Kelly Jo Minter.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Kelly Jo Minter from Nightmare on Elm Street 5, oddly enough. She's doing a tarot reading over the opening titles and is sort of predicting what's going to happen to Fool for his 13th birthday, and it sort of predicts what's going to happen with these archetypal figures of death and so on. They're sort of going into a house following a treasure map to get an ogre's gold, and the ogres are these rich white people who are insane.
Yeah.
And there's a dog that's called Prince. You've got Alice, who's like Alice in Wonderland in her lovely big dress. And yeah, the whole thing does feel like it's a fairy tale.
Yeah, you're right.
R-rated fairy tale.
I think it wouldn't have been as much of a cult following without the gore horror aspect of it.
No.
Like, if you take that out, it seems like quite a silly movie. But with that in, it does step it up a lot. Like, I'm pretty sure that actor, Brandon Quinton Adams, wouldn't have been allowed to watch this movie for many years because it's so violent and so gory.
He went to the premiere, he claims, in the commentary.
Did he?
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, act structure-wise, it's kind of classic Wes Craven in terms of you're killing characters, big main characters. Like Ving Rhames, it's a big name actor. Maybe not so much at the time, but like, you know, he was in the Mission Impossible movies later on in the 90s and 2000s. And a lot of much bigger movies, Bringing Out the Dead, Dawn of the Dead in 2004. And then you kill him off, like, not far into the movie. I think he's killed off in, like, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
And then you're left with a child as the lead character through the movie, which is completely unexpected.
Yeah.
And also the fact that he does escape the house and then go back is another thing that I just did not expect as well. So there's a lot of parts of this movie that aren't cliche at all. It goes against sort of structure to me.
Yeah, and it's an interesting choice of protagonist too, because apart from being black, as you pointed out, not common. You know, a black actor would be cast as the sidekick that died first, was the common cliche in this kind of movie.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah,
Leroy
yeah.
does die first. Oh, no, he doesn't actually. Spencer
Yes,
does.
the white guy dies first, not the black guy.
Yeah, no, that's right. So no matter how well-meaning or noble the adults might be, you know, Leroy is trying to take Fool under his wing and teach him the ways of the world and protect him. He shouts, "Run, Fool," before he dies. It's really the kids that are the heroes of this story.
Yes.
Sort of like
Yeah.
a Goonies adventure almost, which this kind of reminded me of.
Yes, exactly. Goonies, Hunt for Treasure, sort of, very, very much an adventure into the unknown of this house, which is like a labyrinth of crawl space and rooms and hidden passageways. And
Yeah.
when they go into the basement, the stairs like retracts into this slide ramp thing that felt very sort of Goonies as well.
Yeah.
But also the villains are great. I mean, they're almost quite silly and cartoonish. I mean, I knew they were someone from something.
Yes.
But yes, Everett McGill and Wendy Robbie are from Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And I think that's how they got the roles for this movie, right?
Not so much. I don't think it was both of them. Wes Craven claims that he didn't realize that he was reuniting a famous couple
Oh, really?
from Twin Peaks. He claims he did it by accident.
Okay.
He just loved both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they played Ed and Nadine Hurley in Twin Peaks. Nadine,
Yes.
played by Wendy Roby, being particularly memorable as the eye patch wearing Nadine,
Yes.
who's just sort of a neat freak and obsessed and slightly strange, whereas Ed was sort of a sympathetic character who was in love with the lady that ran the diner, I think, if I remember rightly. He was trying to get away from his marriage because he'd fallen in love with somebody else. So it was quite a sad tale.
Right.
Whereas here, Everett McGill is just like balls to the wall insane as well, with his like slicked back Nazi youth hairstyle and his gimp suit and his desperation to shoot and maul everything.
Yeah.
It's quite terrifying.
Yeah. Their dynamic is, it is really entertaining to watch. Because his character he's almost simple in how he kind of reacts to things, like Mommy or the woman. They don't even have names in the movie. But Wendy Roby's character, she's much more clued on and smarter, but also hysterical at the same time, just yelling things. Everett McGill's definitely sort of the muscle in terms of the relationship and does all the violence and shooting and gimps and wearing, which doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure what the choice for that was.
No, probably wasn't a high point of his career.
Yeah, I mean, it does, go balls to the wall. But I do think two other aspects of the movie are very important. You've got the dog, Prince, who is very much another character in the house. Yes. And also the house. Like, the house felt like another character with all the maze of passageways.
Yeah. Well, Craven talks about the house as being a personification of the human psyche. The basement is sort of the subconscious, and then everything you hide rots and undermines the foundations of who you are. And I think he was very keen on showing the rotten underbelly of the suburban white middle class society, particularly.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously some sort of social commentary with white owning land, and the lower, like, working class, like black community, Latino community, sort of under these white supreme beings, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is some sort of commentary going.
There's a huge ladle full of commentary. I mean, this is probably the most outright satirical piece that Craven ever did. Almost a parody of conservatism.
Yes.
Everett McGill's character uses the N-word when describing the black characters in the movie. There's that wonderful moment where Mommy says something about, it feels like we're the prisoners and the criminals are roaming the streets free. It's very much a solid criticism of Reaganism and late stage capitalism and the greed is good era, and instead shifts the perspective onto the people who've been left behind, which is really interesting because it comes from the same stable of films, Alive Films, which gave John Carpenter a 2-picture deal.
Okay.
And they got final cut and could do whatever they want.
Wow.
So Wes did Shocker and The People Under the Stairs, and John Carpenter did Prince of Darkness, which we've done on this pod as well, and They Live, which we haven't yet, but we may well. And They Live is famous for being a very searing commentary about capitalism and the people who are in charge. And again, centers the perspective on the people who've been left behind, in this case, homeless people.
Yeah. I mean, one aspect of the movie I felt like there should have been more emphasis on was the people under the stairs. I mean, it's the title of the film. They seem like a side plot.
Yeah.
Like, the main plot is save Alice, defeat the baddies. The people on the stairs are just like, oh yeah, they're free now, I guess. You do have the character of Roach, though, who helps out Fool a lot. But then again, he's killed off fairly soon. as well.
And I was shocked by that.
Yeah. I thought he was going to be much more of a main character. But killed off too soon.
Yeah, and Sean Whalen, the actor who plays Roach, talks about the fact that people often come up to him at conventions and so on and talk about how much they love the character of Roach.
Yeah.
And he thinks that that's because he's defying the bad guys with a kind of glee and love of mischief.
Yeah.
And also, of course, his self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
But he considers Roach much more of a catalyst than a character because he isn't in it a lot.
No,
and yet
that's
he's
right.
so memorable because I think the image of him was one of the publicity stills that got used, alongside all the reviews. So he came to represent the people under the stairs because you're right, he's the only one you really get to see. The rest of them are just sort of bargain basement, if you'll excuse the pun.
Yes.
Sort of zombie characters with white faces and long hair. Of course, the resolution of the movie is all of these people that have been repressed by these landowning, gentrifying monsters burst out of the walls and burst out through the stairs and get hold of their nemesis at the end. So they are dragged down by the people under the stairs at the end of it. But they are much more of a MacGuffin than characters or something that's personified.
Yeah, I mean, Fool isn't really trying to save them.
No.
It's almost like circumstantial that they managed to free themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, they do help him at the end. So it is a bit confusing because when he first goes down to the basement, they seem threatening. And also Roach jumps on Fool, so you think Roach is the bad guy for a moment, and Fool escapes the basement. And then you don't really see the people on the stairs for the most of the movie, really. You hear them. They're there. They're not really a big part of the movie.
No, you just get the sense that there is a threat. And normally in this type of movie, the monster in the basement would be the threat.
Yeah.
But instead of the white suburban family with the outside alien thing attacking them in some way, which would have been everything from the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s,
Yeah.
this inverts that. The white suburban people are the monsters and the people under the stairs are the victims.
Yes.
But you only learn that once you get to know them as the film
Yeah.
progresses, and you realise that all of the things that make them horrifying are actually the results of the abuse that they've had to endure. And it's the complete opposite of Wes Craven's previous two movies along these lines. So Last House on the Left and The Hills Have Eyes
Yeah.
very much have evil families preying upon the suburban middle class people. So this, which sort of feels like an unofficial third in a trilogy, actually inverts the two cultures completely.
It does. Yeah. And sort of the sort of deformed people in this movie are not the bad guys.
No, they're not.
No.
So that's something that was pointed out to Wes Craven, and it's not something that was intentional. It was just something that happened, but he said he could definitely see that was there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Also, going back to the premise of intruders going into a house and the intruders not being the bad guys, the homeowners being the bad guys. This is kind of like the earliest movie I've seen of that sort of setup. Like I'm thinking of like Don't Breathe.
Oh, yeah.
There's even a movie called Intruders in 2015 where they try to rob this place, and it turns out that the homeowners are not so nice.
Yeah.
So this kind of setup, this is the earliest iteration of that I've seen.
Yeah, so it's quite groundbreaking.
There's a lot of things in this movie that I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Even at the end when you have the whole neighborhood turning up to sort of protest the takeover of their community. Yeah, it was unexpected again, having his full sister turning up and confronting Daddy.
Yeah, Fool blows up because he does find all of their money. They do have a pot of gold.
Yes.
And he blows it up. The money flies up in the air. And so the ending is the community sort of leaping about grabbing the money because Fool has made it rain.
Yeah. It's almost very Fight Club in a way.
Yeah, it is. It's quite anarchic as a finale.
Yeah, and you've got the people on the stairs just wandering out into the world. Oh my God.
It's not good. They need some serious therapy.
Yeah.
Now it's time for random trivia.
Okay, Dan, what wonderful piece of trivia did you find in the basement of your neighbor's house today?
Yes. So I did read this in IMDb, so I hope it's real. But the coin that Fool pulls out of Spencer's hand is a real gold coin. It's known as an American Gold Eagle and contains 1 ounce of 22 karat gold, and would have been worth approximately $708 in 1991, which is adjusted for inflation in 2024, about $1,500.
Wow.
Just that one coin.
Yeah, they had quite a big stack of them as well.
Yeah. So, again, another movie using real money.
Right.
As a prop. After Shallow Grave.
So they weren't fake ones. Wow.
Well, I mean, the one coin that Fool pulls.
Okay.
Maybe not all of them. Maybe the other ones.
Maybe. I was going to say the Scrooge McDuck room that they're all wallowing around in. Probably not.
No, I don't think so.
And that's our trivia.
Yeah. I guess we should talk about the music. A lot of strings, a lot of sort of 80s, I think, drum machines or synthy tones. I did notice in the credits as well, there's a piece by Krzysztof Penderecki, The Threnody for the Victims of Hiroshima, which I studied at high school, so it felt
Really?
very familiar.
Yeah, I feel like that was put in there because how do you pronounce that composer's name? I've always said Penderecki because I'm an imbecile.
Oh, I don't know. I think in high school we pronounce it Penderecki, but
Okay,
I could
that
be
sounds
wrong.
better. Yeah, so there was a lot of Penderecki in The Shining.
Yes, there was.
And I think it became known as horror music or classy horror, modernist classical music.
Yeah, right.
I have a feeling that the main credited composer's score, so this is Don Peake, who seems to be mainly working with synthesizers. It sounds very much like low budget synthesizer horror music from the late 80s. I have a feeling that it wasn't good enough. I think the Penderecki is needle drops being put in after the fact to replace Don Peake's score. And I noticed there is a credit at the end of the movie for additional music by Graham Revell, who is a much more successful composer.
Okay.
Yeah, I suspect that he came in. He's a New Zealand composer
I
who we
see.
came across on Dead Calm. But he also worked on things like The Crow and The Craft and Freddy versus Jason,
Right.
ironically enough.
Okay.
But I think some of the orchestral stuff that you can hear was additional injection of cash and effort to try and spice up some of the film, because a lot of it is just noodling synth tones and drum beats.
I mean, I don't mind it. The sort of 80s jarring drum machine stuff. I kind of liked it. Like, it was dissonant, atonal, and abrasive as well. Like, it kind of suited the sort of more chaotic scenes with Daddy running around, shooting a shotgun at all the walls. I mean, there was one scene when the police, so Fool calls the police on the house saying there's been child abuse or whatever, and the police don't see anything, which I like, surely there's at least one wall that's got a hole in it.
Peppered with shotgun blasts,
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I didn't mind the score for this movie. Like, yes, the string parts were the kind of the best parts.
Yeah,
like,
they were.
They were very unnerving, lots of sort of glissandi, lots of sort of weird, eerie tones with strings that made it very, very creepy.
Yeah, unusual playing techniques, the sort of thing Penderecki was famous for.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the score, I mean, even now, it would be considered very experimental. There's no bars, really. There's no notes. It will just be like a block. So you just have to play a note within this block of notes.
Right.
It looks interesting to play.
Yeah. And every performance, I guess, is completely different.
Yeah, every performance is different because it's how you interpret what you read.
Yeah, of course.
So and also the tempo is not set. It's not like metered, really.
Yeah, so it's a mixed bag, I think, the soundtrack. And I think the quality of the movie, the production elements, I think is mixed too. I mean, certainly the special effects, some of them are pretty juicy and detailed and disgusting, but also some of them are quite fake and rubbery looking, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the severed hand at one point. That's I mean, one thing we should really talk about is the comedy aspect of the movie. It does not unbalance the tone. It's not the sort of thing you would see in this movie, so much comedy.
Yeah, it's a surprise, isn't it? Did Craven do anything much like it? I mean, obviously, the Scream franchise is a sort of a horror comedy. It's very knowing in any case, and there are a lot of funny lines in it.
It's meta, yeah, for sure. I don't think this movie's trying to be meta, though.
No.
Like, it is really leaning into the 90s comedy for violence. But just like moments where they get electrocuted at one point because the door handle has been electrified.
Yeah.
And a fool gets electrified at one point, and then he realizes this is the only way to overpower the dog. Prince the dog has attacked Leroy, and the only way to overpower the dog is for Fool to pull Leroy with dog still attached to the front door, grab the handle, and then they all get electrified.
Yes.
But it's a very like Home Alone moment where it's very funny and silly and goofy. I don't know, and they all go "Grrr," and get electrocuted. It's very silly. At one point, Fool punches Daddy in the balls.
Yes,
Again,
he does,
felt very
yeah.
Home Alone.
Yeah, it does. The whole movie does. But it's interesting, though, because even though the performances are dialed up to 11, I mean, it's not subtle. None of it is subtle.
No.
It's still disturbing. I mean, particularly the scenes with AJ Langer's character, Alice, where she's being tormented by Mummy and scalded in the bath. And Alice is just screaming and terrified and sobbing. And so it's at the same time as it being sort of pitched at a level where you can't take it seriously at all, it still gets the point across at how disturbing it is that these two people are trying to create this vision of the perfect 1950s white suburban upper middle class family. And will do it at any cost, and no matter how much they have to damage everybody involved in order to achieve it when the vicar comes around for tea and biscuits. You know, it's savage satire, very disturbing, but also funny.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the comedic elements of the movie, it didn't feel out of place once you kind of got used to it. I mean, they kill a dog in the movie, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, the prince is supposed to be the vicious guard dog that they're trying to get away from, but I still felt incredibly sad in that scene.
Yeah, because it's not really Prince's fault that he's been raised by these two people.
No.
Yeah, and there is a lot of tragedy in it. I mean, Roach's death, I think one of the reasons why people fondly remember Roach is because his death is so sad.
Yeah.
Because it is an act of self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
And he seems like quite a lovely guy for a tongueless, pale weirdo who lives in the walls.
Yeah. I mean, the main two child actors, great. So Fall and Alice, the characters. And their sort of arc as well, I really enjoyed. So Fall is kind of portrayed as being scared at the start. Like he doesn't want to rob the house. He doesn't want to follow Leroy upstairs. Leroy calls him girlfriend at one point or something.
Yeah.
So he kind of overcomes his fears and stands up. He stops running at one point. He's like, no, I want to stand up to myself, stand up to the dog and the homeowners. And you've also got Alice with a very similar arc. She's scared. She's compliant. She doesn't talk when she's not spoken to.
Yeah.
But then at the end, she does stand up to Mummy and fights back, and is the only reason that Mummy gets taken down at the end as well. Because Alice drops from the ceiling onto her. So I did love those characters.
Yeah. The children getting the strength to overcome the evil conservative overlords.
Yes.
Yeah. It is satisfying. Particularly what I found fascinating is in an interview with AJ Langer, she was talking about how what she recognizes in that character now, what she was playing, I mean, she was only 17 at the time, was the sort of fake, demure, obsequious, just this soft, gentle, feminine weakness that's so obedient and cowed. And she said that she recognized that this is an experience that many women have, either as a result of domestic abuse generally, or certainly being raised in this sort of religious extremism, and which is another thing that we should mention. I mean, clearly they are religious. They keep screaming about burning in hell and so on. And
the most repeated line.
Yes, clearly. And Craven himself was raised as a fundamentalist Baptist, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So this is something that he is weaving into it quite deliberately. And it just put me in mind of a friend of ours from Hit Record, Tia Levings.
Right.
She's just had her book published, A Well-Trained Wife, about her escape from being married in a very abusive relationship in a sort of fundamentalist environment. She's talked about how she had to behave in a certain way and was trained to behave in a certain sort of way in order to just to get by, to sort of escape the wrath of her oppressor. And I find that really fascinating, the way she plays it. And it's really satisfying to see her stand up at the end and overcome all of it. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, you did mention the sort of fairy tale aspect. Like she is kind of the princess that needs to be saved.
Yeah.
But then she kind of saves herself. She's the one that overcomes Mummy and stabs her in the end. She doesn't need Fool to help her. He's busy. with Daddy.
No, and she saves Fool right at the very beginning.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah.
So it's a great partnership between the two of them, and an unlikely one. Again, not something that you would see necessarily in this period of cinema. Certainly not in the mainstream, anyway.
No, I mean, they're children.
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like the little details as well, how she makes these dolls. Like she leaves them lying around and pulls them on a string to guide them where to go, all the secret passageways. But they're like voodoo replicas of him and Spencer and
Yeah,
Leroy.
all the people who've died in the house.
Yeah.
It's a bit sick, isn't it? Is it as a way to keep them alive for her because she has no companions? I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It's not really explained. It's a bit of ADR. There's a lot of ADR in the movie, which is a bit sad.
There is. It doesn't take me out.
No.
It's not too bad. Yeah, a lot of Fool's lines are ADR'd. And same with Alice, I think, as well.
Yeah, a lot of explanations. Like I noted down at one point, Fool says, I'm going to get that shotgun and set those kids free. Because they got to the edit suite and realised it wasn't clear what he was doing, I guess. Because he's not on screen and his lips aren't moving when that line comes out.
Yeah, sure.
Coming to you live from the movie Oubliette Theatre, it's the prestigious Mbley Awards.
Hello, it's everyone's favourite part of the pod, the Mbley Awards, where we nominate our most loved, flesh-tearing, cannibalistic parts of the film in a number of buckshot-riddled categories.
Best quote.
My favourite quote in this movie is one from Fool, and it comes from the moment when he discovers the huge Scrooge McDuck pile of money in a room. It's all true, the coins, the cash, the greed. This family has just amassed this huge amount of wealth, but it doesn't make them happy, and they live in some grotty, dilapidated mansion, but never mind. And Fool says, no wonder there's no money in the ghetto.
Yes.
It's all weird.
It is.
Yeah, and Bernie Sanders would agree. The 1% have squandered it all.
Yes. My favourite quote is also from Fool. It's towards the start of the movie, actually, when he's talking to his mum, who has cancer or something. She's very sick.
Yeah.
And he says, one day I'm gonna buy you a Cadillac for each foot, mama, and you're gonna skate around town looking so bad. I just love that imagery of having a Cadillac on each foot. It's great.
Yeah, it's really lavish. Yeah. Cadillacs for shoes.
Yeah.
Best hair or costume.
We can't not mention the gimp suit.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's got to be the gimp suit.
It's pretty standout. It comes out of nowhere because you think he's just a normal bad guy that beats children. But then he pops out in full leathers. Like, I mean, I'm talking full coverage here.
Oh, yeah.
Face and everything with a shotgun and the studs, metal studs all over as well. It's like, okay, this is happening. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's memorable for sure.
Oh, it definitely is. I didn't even know who it was first time I watched the movie. I thought, what is this? Is this like a Leatherface type of character that they've got chained up in the basement or something? Because I was so young and innocent, I didn't know what a gimp was.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Ving Rhames wouldn't escape gimps because the very next movie he did, Pulp Fiction, there's a gimp again.
Yeah, of course.
90s was the year of the gimp, it seems.
Yeah.
Most 90s moment.
I thought the thing that most dated this movie was news footage of the bombing of Baghdad.
Oh,
Desert Storm.
yeah.
17th of January 1991. Alongside, I think you can hear like a cheesy primetime soap opera, and then the military bombing Baghdad. So I thought that was, quite a nice encapsulation of sort of what was on the television.
Sure.
War being waged against another country, probably for no reason, no good reason.
Yeah.
And some cheesy soap opera about a bunch of affluent, because it sounds sort of like it's Dallas or Dynasty.
Oh,
It's sort of
yeah.
the lives of the rich and fickle. It's, I thought, as an encapsulation of 90s culture, you can just hear that on the television, and it feels very pointed that it's being included.
Yeah. Ah, yes. 90s, I mean, the most obvious would be comedy violence, which was very much a 90s thing with Home Alone, Dennis Menace, Baby's Day Out, Mouse Hunt, Problem Child, even like Little Rascals, all these these kids just like causing havoc and all the adults getting hurt badly.
Yeah, it's very true.
Favorite scene?
So it kind of veers into the comedy, but there's the scene where they're in the walls. We've got Fall and Alice, I think, and they're trying to escape Prince. So I do love how they just kind of shove the dog in places that they can't fit, and the dog does all the dirty work. So the dog is chasing them through the walls, and then there's a trapdoor that Fall manages to find and pull, and then the dog slides down it on a tray. Also, they lure the dog to the trapdoor with one of the plushy toys, that the rag dolls that Alice makes, and so the dog grabs it like a dog toy, falls down the trapdoor on a slide on this sort of tray. It slides down it and ends up in the kitchen with mummy and daddy. And just the look on the dog's face when he sort of emerges with the toy in his mouth, it's like even ferocious dogs are just puppies at heart. They just want a little bit of a play.
Yeah, he's just trying to please them, isn't he? Poor little guy.
Yeah. Favorite scene for you?
My favourite scene was the finale when Alice finally stood up to her mother,
yes.
and the people under the stairs burst through the stairs and the walls to take down their oppressors. I thought, this is a really satisfying ending.
Yeah, like almost surreal as well, because you've got them literally bursting out of the floorboards, through the walls, through stairs. It's like nightmare material, but in a satisfying, good way, because the bad guys are getting taken down.
Yeah.
Most cliche moment.
I mean, for me, cliche would be creepy basements, of course. Don't go into the basement.
Yeah, although it's an inverted cliche, because actually the basement is the safest place to be.
Yeah, that's
pretty
true.
much.
Yeah. Cliche for you?
The biggest cliche for me is the property developer is evil. Because ever since Mr. Potter and It's a Wonderful Life from 1946, the guy that's trying to develop property or buy property or squander property is always evil or slimy. So Lex Luthor in Superman causes an earthquake just to open new beachfront property. There's the property guys, we're mentioning the Goonies again, the developers that are going to take away their whole town. In Poltergeist, they moved the headstones, but they didn't move the bodies and just built houses over the graveyard. Batteries Not Included has got evil property developers trying to run an elderly couple out of their home as well. So in the 80s and early 90s, property developers were just scum.
Yeah.
Best special effect.
My favourite special effect is Roach's tongue stump.
I was going to say that too. It's horrifying. I didn't want to see that.
No. And I love that he sort of moves his finger up and down to show that it's missing, and he accidentally catches his finger on it as he's doing it, and it sort of springs back up. Oh, it's horrible.
It's horrible. Yeah, it looks rotted.
Yeah.
Favorite sound effect.
Sound for me is just like a general sort of overview of the movie rather than a specific sound effect. But I did like how they use sound to represent the people under the stairs. So you've got full kind of following noises, and you have the camera sort of panning across. And it did really work in terms of creating the sense of, there are other beings in this house.
Yeah, I love the echoey voices of the people under the stairs
exactly.
as well. It's quite spooky.
Yeah.
Sean Whalen also mentioned in his interview that when he took his friends to the premiere, he was really excited. It was his first movie where he was like in the main cast.
Yeah, sure.
And every time they heard him going, ooh,
Yeah.
in the background, they were laughing and he couldn't figure out why. And they told him afterwards it's because it's the same noise that he used to make when he was hungover.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my
So it
God.
just sounded like he was drunk.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Poor guy. My favourite harkens back to our episode on equilibrium. It's the doggy vocalizations, which I think must be a voice actor because
Really?
they're too sort of emotionally specific in a couple of places,
Yeah.
particularly when Fool punches Prince. What you hear on the soundtrack is sort of, oh, like he's really disappointed.
Yeah, yeah.
Most funniest moment.
You've mentioned my funniest moment already, which is when Fool deliberately electrocutes himself and Leroy in order to electrocute Prince the dog. And the reason for me that it's really funny is when you get that 3-shot of all of them sort of like jerking in a comedic way because they're being electrocuted. Look closely. That is clearly a puppet dog head that is on
is it?
Ving Rhames that's got like these big buggy eyes and this lolling tongue that's being shaken up and down
Oh, wow.
at the edge of the frame, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I watched it over and over again just to watch the dog puppet.
Oh, I need to rewatch that.
It's hilarious. It's very funny.
Okay, yeah. My funniest moment is just a line from Fall. So he's trying to convince Leroy that Spencer is dead. And he says, he's dead, Leroy, and scared to death. And then Leroy inquires, are you sure? In which Fall replies, you thought he was white before. You should see that sucker now.
Yeah, and he is very, very pale.
He's
when
very
they
white.
find
Yes,
him.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's our movies.
That's our movies.
Hi, this is Tom Woodruff Jr., and you're listening to Movie Oubliette.
Final verdict time. Should Wes Craven's The People Under the Stairs from 1991 be set free from the walls of the Robeson funeral home to be adored once again? Or should it be pushed down the retractable stairs, dumped into the meat tank of the Oubliette, locked away for eternity? Conrad, does The People Under the Stairs hold up for you?
Well, it's a curious beast, this one, because if you're going into it expecting a Wes Craven, terrifying, mind-blowing horror movie, you're not going to get that. It was marketed as that, so I think people kind of thought, what is this? And forgot it. I mean, I don't think a lot of people talk about it now, certainly not in the mainstream. I was definitely disappointed the first time I saw it, but then when I watched it again, when it came out as a special edition, I thought, well, I can appreciate all of the social commentary that's going on here. And actually, it's quite groundbreaking for centering characters that are usually marginalized and having them the heroes, and then having the people who are usually the victims be the monsters in this movie, and vice versa. It's kind of a cheap production. All of the sets look like sets. The score's a bit of a hodgepodge of a failed Don Peak synthesizer score and some needle drops of classical music, and so it's a bit ramshackle, but it's a good time. I mean, it's a really funny, quirky, grisly, slightly disturbing, entertaining movie that you can take as just a fun fairy tale with a few laughs in it and some inventive imagery. And then appreciate for all of the wry social commentary that Craven is making about the after effects of Reagan's greed is good society. So yeah, I still like it. I think it stands up, and I think it's even more relevant now than it was then, and still a good time.
Yes, I would agree. I mean, Wes Craven, like, he's got such a reputation as being an amazing master of horror. But apart from Scream and Nightmare on Elm Street, I haven't been that impressed by these movies. Like, we didn't have a good time with The Simpsons and The Rainbow or Shocker. Well, I didn't anyway. But this movie did really surprise me in just the premise and the social commentary and the actors and the location. It's everything I didn't expect from Wes Craven, to be honest. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the ride. I enjoyed the fact that it was a bit of a collage of genres. Like it was horror, thriller, disturbing, almost action at times. Yeah, I loved it. Really, really loved it. And it's an odd movie to describe to people as well, because it is a bit of everything. And a movie that shouldn't really work, that has that sort of that many elements and genres all mashed together. But it does. And it's got a great conclusion. And I would 100% recommend this to people.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was good. I think it holds up.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's one of my favorite Wes Craven movies.
Yeah.
It's up there, I would say, with Nightmare and Scream.
Yeah.
It definitely needs more praise.
Well, I wonder what our patrons think.
Oh.
Hello, Hal. You know what time it is?
It feels like it's vote counting time.
Yes, it is.
They agree with you guys. They want it to escape the oubliette.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Everyone agrees.
It's 100% across the board.
Ooh.
Eddie Coulter says, I say let the people out of the oubliette and into the daylight. I love the dark fairy tale vibe and humour of the movie. It all just blends so well together with great performances from Everett McGill and Wendy Roby as Daddy and Mummy. I rank The People Under the Stairs among Craven's best films, which is what you just
Me
said.
too.
Yeah. Jasmine said, while A Nightmare on Elm Street might be regarded by most as Wes Craven's most iconic film, The People Under the Stairs is the film that is undeniably his most fun and insane. It needs to be released from its cellar-dwelling existence so it can find the audience it deserves.
Yes.
Yeah. And Chazilla said, the insanity in The People Under the Stairs just never stops. That performance by Everett McGill was so over the top. Everything he said or did was just so hammy. I couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah.
I really liked the TARDIS house. That thing was just massive on the inside. It had some serious rose red vibes. The hallways just seemed to get bigger and longer. It would have to be massive inside just to have all those in between the wall passages.
Yeah.
I was really expecting a Scooby-Doo hallway scene when Four was being chased by Daddy.
Yeah.
There are so many doors. Zoinks, yo. Let Stilgar and the people climb the stairs out of the oubliette. Gimp suit and all.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, it's unanimous. And it's great to let one of these lesser known, lesser well-remembered Wes Craven movies out of the oubliette at last.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. Be free.
Off you go, people under the stairs.
Okay, so what's up next in our next episode, Conrad?
Well, we are stepping back from the 90s, you'll be pleased to hear, into the 80s again.
Ooh.
But shifting genres into a dark fantasy film directed by Lucio Fulci. Conquest.
I didn't even know he did fantasy. I thought he just did zombie movies.
Yeah, me too. And I've never seen any Fulci, so...
Oh, really?
That's bad.
Oh, that's
Huge
bad.
gap.
Oh, wow.
Huge gap in my horror credentials. I haven't seen a single one of his movies. So my first one is going to be his Sword and Sandal adventure, I think.
Oh, okay. I don't think it'll be a classic Fulci, but we will see.
We will see. It was chosen for us by our very special guest, so let's see what piqued their interest.
Yes, yes. Okay, listeners, if you want to keep up to date with our future episodes when that one comes out, you can follow us on all our platforms as Movie Oubliette, and you can email us at movie.oubliette@gmail.com as well.
Yes, like Kevin from Planet X, who sent us a lovely long email. And if you want to support the show like Kevin from Planet X, then you can head over to Patreon, where for as little as $1 you get extra extended portions of the show, and for $5 you get access to our exclusive monthly minisodes and an opportunity to vote on the final verdict. And for $10 you can be an executive producer like Chazilla, Eddie Coulter, Isaac Sutton, Dr. Doggy Surge, iconographer Ryan A. Potter, and Evan Goodchild.
Yes, thank you. And please do check out our latest minisode that we did on Hudson Hawk, which was good fun.
Yeah, it was. It was completely out of our normal wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of an adventure because neither of us had seen it before.
Yes. We do have merchandise on Redbubble and a YouTube channel as well. And please also give us a rating and review on whatever platform you're listening to us on. It does help us out a lot.
It does.
Okay. That's it for another episode, Conrad. Look forward to Conquest. All right. Goodbye.
I'm off to buy a gimp suit. Bye.
We review the films others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the movie Oubliette.
It's as if we're the prisoners and the criminals roam free.